The Prince of Darkness emerges from the fog this Halloween, my children. Yes, it is time for some more tales for a Halloween night, presented by horror legend John Carpenter. And, there are a lot, so let's get started. In the first volume, there were a handful of tales to be presented, but this time around, it's quality and quantity. Allow me to run through them all quickly, my children. Think of it as a bunch of short horror films. The Grounds Creeper first presents us with a story from Carpenter himself, The Traveler's Tale, where a man steals a very attractive-looking box, and inside is but a head that fuses itself to his arm. The head keeps repeating a set of coordinates, which the man goes to, finding the head's missing body. Once reattached, the new man kills the buyer and decapitates him, giving him a new set of coordinates to find his body, and putting his head in the box for the next traveler. Following that is Carnival Max and the Traveling Beauty Show, a gory, gruesome little tale about some lovelies who must answer riddles correctly, or be chopped up in gratuitous fashion. But are they not just dolls to be played with? From the sideshow to the Old West, we head into The Posse. Robbing a bank is easy. It's getting away that's the hard part. A group of robbers identify the members of the posse responsible for chasing after robbers and outlaws and quietly assassinate them before their robbery. But they still get wounded in their escape, and there still seems to be a posse chasing them, and they dare not look back to see them. And then we move on to The Finger. It's the story of a man who feels like the whole world is giving him the finger. A shrewish ex-wife, bill collectors, unappreciative children. So how nice is it that he finds a strange finger in the garbage? And that finger soon begins to grow, forming into a little goblin. One who is very appreciative of him, and is all too happy to butcher anyone who gives him the slightest stink eye. He truly loves him, so when he's eventually put in the nut house for seemingly killing everyone around him, he knows the thing that loves him will come for him. Then it is Patterns, a story of why it's so important to be nice to Mother Nature, my children. Just ask Diane. She's been talking to the trees since she was a little girl, always being respectful to them. In her adulthood, she tries to protect the forests from being torn down for yet another parking lot, yet another apartment complex. She tried to make them understand, but they wouldn't listen. So it's up to the trees to show them the error of their ways. But at least the children will be spared. They at least know how to learn. From below the ground came the trees, and even farther below ground we find the basement. After buying a large house on the cheap, a couple begins cleaning up, with the man discovering a door leading into the basement, and the ghostly torturer who now inhabits it. He is the Leatherman, a slave owner from colonial times who tormented said slaves, even skinned them to make said leather. One ghost remains behind to keep his spirit contained, to ensure the Leatherman never escapes this dungeon. But fortunately, the still living man does. Although that's when his wife begins to notice the door leading to the basement. That story could be a bit of a downer at times. So how about we have something so happy? A little girl named Sophia gets lost at a carnival, losing her parents, but then chases after another lost boy, being led away by a carnival mascot. Chasing after them, Sophia discovers the horrors of the mascots, pulverizing some of them into meat, draining away the hopes and dreams of children to keep them happy. She finally makes it out of the nightmarish carnival and to her parents, who put a special hat on her to keep her so happy. From the bright carnival atmosphere to the desolate blacks and whites of a snowy cliff, we meet a man hunting a murderer, finally cornering him in a cave. When the two are attacked by a large, monstrous creature, they kill it, the hunter remembering stories told about such creatures from his youth. But the murderer betrays him, breaks his spine to keep him from pursuing. but the hunter probably should have warned him ahead of time. The creature comes in pairs. Next up is Hands Free, about a woman who has stolen an amulet that is rather old. And she may not have followed the precise instructions for how to steal it, for it seems that on the car ride home, as she talks to the person who paid her to steal it, the amulet is doing all it can to make her put it back where she found it, including getting a little handsy. Till death brings us a husband who murders his wife, then goes out and gets laid, only for his date to be laughing it up with his wife the next morning. She keeps showing up despite the thorough job he did on her. He even digs up her corpse to make sure she's dead. He hooks up with the one-night stand again, only to learn that indeed his wife is dead. It's just the woman was someone his wife had hired before her death, to ensure that if he did kill her, she'd have her revenge from beyond the grave. Mr. Goodnight finds a pair of boys hoping to dig up some treasure, but only finding a strange black ooze that infects one, letting the spirit of a mad doctor infect him. He was so obsessed with trying to fix people's brains, and so convinced he could glue them back together again after he cracked them open. And it seems he plans to do the same now to the boys and their families. But speaking of families, our penultimate tale is Safe from Harm. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, a mother and daughter worry about the threat of nuclear war, while the evidence begins mounting up for a different sort of invasion, one from alien monsters that begin parachuting into America. The mother and daughter reach a designated safe zone that does not stay safe for long, especially since only the poor daughter is left alone in the dark, hoping the aliens don't spot her little safe hole. And finally we end with House of the Rising Sun, with a little ditty about life in New Orleans, about an abusive man who was a monster, and how he made his wife into slightly less of a monster, despite the odd appendages that come out of her arms to strangle him. John Carpenter's Tales for a Halloween Night continues to bring some original horror tales from some master craftsmen of the medium, with even more of them this time.
Well, might as well try this out.